left are fearless explorers. They had fought off the aliens who were trying to sacrifice them to the gods and had a moment's breather. They could see people like in the distance of the city, kind of the other hunting parties coming towards them, but they're like basically everyone had run away and they had a few minutes to do whatever they wanted.
Yeah. There was a little bit of everyone we're a bit banged up. Did Flint Daniels go down again?
No, but he was banged up from his difficulty climbing the wall.
Right.
But
Pill had taken some damage, dented head.
Right.
Yeah.
But nothing that needed
medical attention. So Lieutenant Pill had received a dented head. He had successfully concealed it from the rest of the party because none of them had reacted to it, so he figured he'd succeeded. And then after in the wake of the battle, he sort of took Ampley as the engineer. Said, if I may speak to you privately for a moment, and sort of stepped around a corner and then continued speaking loudly.
And all the other party members just started going. They're all like just totally listening, standing there.
Yeah, I told Anpele that you probably have not noticed, but I have an embarrassing condition. When I was stranded on that ship for a while, I suffered an injury, and as I am a Jehovah's Witness, I couldn't get a transplant when I got back, so I have a prosthetic. And as you may note on closer examination, I have damaged my prosthetic. Would you be able to fix that? So she tried fixing the dented head, and wasn't able to.
Was that your character?
It was no, that's Robert's character.
Yeah, my character's not in it. Whoever's GMing, because it's a rotating shift, so whoever's GMing, their character by default doesn't go.
But I thought Robin was playing the fisticuffs.
Robert.
Yeah.
Oh, Robert.
Yeah,
right.
Who you played Hank last time.
Right.
Yeah.
He's playing Sabine and Pillay.
Yeah.
Oh, the last name is
Yeah.
Ampley. Got it.
Yeah.
I was confused.
You're thinking of Chumley, Lieutenant Chumley, maybe?
Yes, but I heard Ampley and I didn't know who that was.
Yeah, that's Sabine.
Sabine. Okay.
It's a Belgian last name. Because Chumley said, "Oh, that sounds French."
Yeah.
And she was like, "No, it's Belgian." Whatever.
So, anyways, she couldn't fix it because it's a field repair, and those things are quite a unlikely success. But oh well. So we had to look around. We're on top of the Ziggurat, and on top of the Ziggurat there is a smaller Ziggurat.
Yeah,
one could almost call it a mini-gurat.
Yeah, it's sort of like if you imagine the Ziggurat didn't go all the way to the top, then it had a flat part, and then like kind of over here, like the rest is offset slightly.
Right. I mean, that's sort of how ziggurats are. They're stepped pyramids. So there's a big step, and then there's the rest of the thing.
And that's where they had all their stuff was on like the large platform of that step, but they never had ascended to the very top of the Ziggurat, and that's where the guards had come out of.
So is what happens when your pyramid remarries?
Yes, you get a step pyramid.
I refuse to apologize.
So anyway, the guards...
Take that, Internet.
There's more guards coming down in the streets, so we know we can't stay here forever, and besides, we don't want to stay here forever. It's boring. So we climbed to the top of the mini-garage to see, like, okay, this is the place where they sacrifice to the gods. Let's examine.
And they know the energy signatures are coming from this Ziggurat. They figured the gods are inside, so they want to figure out how to get inside. They did a little exploration of where the guards came out of, but it's just a closed-off space. Like, it seems like the top of the Ziggurat is the place to be.
Yeah. So we find up at the top, there's these 20, like, circles, circular seams in the stone.
With, like, designs on them and stuff.
Yeah. And so I figure, okay, they put the sacrifices on these things and they go down and stuff happens.
And they observe that, like, the designs on 15 of them are quite scuffed, and then there's the 5 last ones are progressively less scuffed up to, like, the 20th one that's almost not scuffed at all.
Yeah. So we figure, they usually don't have 20, they usually have 15. So Lieutenant Anpley does some more engineer wah-wah and figures out how to trigger a mechanism here. She doesn't really know what the mechanism does, but she figures out how to trigger it. So we trigger it, and the 20 stone circle things, they sink down into the ground, and there's like
stone sound.
There's like smoke generators that put out.
Oh right,
smoke.
that's right. Yeah, like all around it just fills with smoke in the area, so you can't see what happens. In fact, the only reason they can see them is they're like right in there looking, because anyone who would be observing the sacrifice would just see the smoke. and those
Yeah.
things go into the surface.
Yeah.
And they looked in there, and there's like these metal arms that grab you and pull you into some other thing, and then the stones come back up, and eventually the smoke dissipates.
Yeah. So we're like, oh, okay. The things, arm grabbers, like grab the sacrifices and haul them off somewhere. We want to see where that is. So we trigger the mechanism again. The stone goes down, and then
Flint Daniels does his daring do.
Yeah.
He goes, ha-ha, and jumps into the hole.
Yeah.
And avoids those grabber
Grabbers.
arms because he knows they're coming, or I think he
Yeah.
jumped after they actually got ka-chunk.
Yeah, I don't remember. I
think it was he waited until
No, we
they
talked
got
about that,
ka-chunk.
but then I think he ended up just deciding to avoid them. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
It doesn't matter. He doesn't get
He
grabbed.
jumps in there, and those things are supposed to pull you into this tube that sucks you down, but he just like avoided it, jumps through, shoots his laser, blasts a hole in the tube, and jumps
Yeah.
through, and he falls about like 7 feet to the ground, and is fine.
Yeah.
And on the backside, you can see that like they were in like rows of 10. And they go, and there's tubes, and the thing grabs you into the tube, pulls you down into something, and there's some sort of device down there at the bottom, and from which is coming like this grinding, whirring sound, and they're all doing that.
So yeah, after he's confirmed that it's a safe thing to do and there's a space for us and all that kind of stuff, the rest of us jump in as well. I think, do we have to trigger it a third time or something?
Probably,
Yeah.
but he probably he destroyed that mechanism, so you can just easily.
Okay.
You probably, I don't know. We didn't actually
Yeah.
go through that in great detail,
Yeah.
but they all got in
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it wasn't a huge obstacle to overcome. It was just, jump down there. And so we examine the mechanisms that are down there, and it's pretty clearly, obviously, a people grinder.
Making videos.
Yeah, and I do some science at it, and it's a people grinder that extracts, some kind of substance from the ground up people.
Particularly complex organic substance
Yeah.
that is typically found in
I don't know.
in organic life forms
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, it's something. It's extracting something from the people it grinds up.
Right.
Yeah, and they see actually it doesn't work because there's nothing in there, but eventually all the little machines, a little like
A cube full of water.
A cube with an empty top is filled with water, and it comes out of all of them.
Yeah.
And they know that it's supposed to be full of something else, but because it had no raw ingredients, it just was full of water.
Yeah. So this little robot comes to pick up the cube, and did we start following her, or did we just kill it and take it apart?
We started following it initially, so it
Right,
came along
yeah.
and it collected all of the cubes
Yeah,
of water, and then
yeah.
just starts driving along.
So
And
we
they notice the
start
door
following it.
open for it, so they realize, it has something built into it can open doors. So they start following into the hallway, but eventually they trip an alarm, and they hear, so they grab this thing and just run through a random doorway to hide.
Right.
And in that doorway, or in that room, they see it's some kind of large thing that's they do some sciencing and engineering on it, and it's doing food replication. It's producing all the food that's going out
Yeah.
into the
From
city.
recycled waste.
Yes.
Everyone got
Soylent
all.
Bessie Mooey.
Yeah, everyone got all creeped out about that, but I'm like, what does our ship probably do? I'm sure it's got the same kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing.
And they Lieutenant Anpillay figures out what that. They were talking about carrying the robot around. I think they were imagining it was a little smaller than I was
Yeah,
imagining, and I'm like,
yeah.
this thing is like as heavy as an air conditioner. It's not. You can carry it
Yeah.
around, but it's not easy.
I was imagining like an R2 unit or something at most. Maybe.
Well, that's- I feel like
even
an
one of
R2
those little.
I imagined a Roomba.
I was thinking, one of the cleaning pots.
Yeah,
I was
my
thinking-
first thought was that little
Oh, yeah.
roller skate thing.
Yeah. No, I was
that's-
thinking probably something about as big as an R2 unit. I'm sure that thing is at least as heavy as an air conditioner. You can't just
Yeah.
pick that up.
2 people can carry an
Yeah,
R2 unit.
For sure, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. He fights back.
That's true. R2 is a dick.
People would try to pick him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was imagining a Roomba when you first described it.
No, it's like, I don't know. I was imagining something maybe like almost as tall as R2 and basically the same size otherwise, right? Has
Well,
a little tray
anyway.
on top. Anyway, they figured
We
out.
rip its guts out.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
found the part they found the key card part basically. Just
Yeah.
pulled that off and left it there, and started sneaking through the
Yeah.
things. But
With the
unfortunately,
alarms and stuff. But
the rest of the party, someone set off one of the alarms.
Yeah.
Because the way it works with the rules is the person who's the best at it can make like a champion roll, because otherwise then what you you get a penalty, and the penalty Chumley did not succeed because of the penalty, which means that
Somebody else.
his skill was not enough to overcome the other people's incompetence.
Right.
And so they set off the alarms, and
Turrets,
ambushed.
so many turrets.
Yeah, a bunch of like ceiling mounted lasers came down from the ceiling, and a bunch of robots that like walk like and then aim their guns.
Yeah.
And then the grenade
And
launchers.
the pulse grenade launchers, yes.
Yeah.
So
Proton grenades.
proton grenades.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
So these proton grenades, they were the biggest tricky part of the fight. On their attack roll, it would say what color zone they get to fire this thing into. And so they fire these proton grenades. And the way the hallway was laid out, there was this one area right in the center. There was like an intersection. And in the center was this like no color zone with no cover. And so everything loved firing at that thing. And so it like got 7 grenades piled up in it.
Right.
And they don't detonate right away. They detonate remotely. So the thing can decide when to detonate.
Right.
And no one was staying in that
Right.
there. So it just piled up like 7 grenades in there.
Yeah, and it became a thing because, like, you know, that center section is where you could
Yeah.
shoot everyone, but also you would get shot at by everyone.
Yeah.
And so it became quite difficult to, like, kind of get
Yeah.
those final guys, and then it got all piled up with grenades.
Which they were like,
and it goes in there and they blow it up.
But because it's random, it's not guaranteed they can blow it up.
Right.
So like there was a round where it's only if they did their Z action. So they did another X action, and everyone like ran into the grenade thing.
Right.
And I'm okay, whatever. It's reasonable. And someone was saying, okay, did everyone who ran in here, do you have a way out?
Yeah.
Does everyone here have a movement out? And someone's like, I don't.
I don't have a card to run away.
And so then the next round comes along, and the Z action triggers.
Yeah.
And but.
Please have a data
But
transfer.
some people didn't have stuff. But what they did do is everyone just focused fire on the enemy and destroyed it right before it. Like I was saying, like its countdown was going beep 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 beep, 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 and then blew it open. So they saved themselves from all the proton grenades going off.
I mean, in hindsight, it probably wouldn't have been too bad because
There's a maximum amount of damage. I mean, everyone would have lost their shields and taken 1 point of health.
Right.
But you can't lose more than 1 point of health per round, so really it doesn't matter how many proton
Yeah.
grenades go off on you.
I think some of us were at 1 health though. So
Yeah.
I think it would have taken some
It
of
would
us
have
down.
taken him down, but it wouldn't have ended the fight. Everyone would have died. But I mean,
So we managed to defeat these things. Actually, those proton grenades were more helpful to us than harmful, I think, because
they never went off, so then they collected them.
Right. They're like,
Yeah.
we got
I
proton.
know part of it
bunch
is
of
collecting
proton
alien tech, so
Yeah.
I said, you know, you can use them like your normal grenades, and you can get the same benefit. They don't go off on a timer; they go off by you just attack an action. It doesn't even matter the color. You say I'm detonating them with an attack card, and they'll all detonate.
Right.
So
And one of the turret types, it had like this crazy Gatling spray everything with laser fire gun. It hits everything in the zone. And so we kept running into zones with other turrets in them. And so they were helping us as well because they were blowing up their own turrets.
it was interesting because the turrets themselves had enough defenses that unless they did their Z action, they couldn't hurt each other, but they could hurt the
They're little crappy guys.
the ceiling mounted lasers. So they kept taking out the ceiling mounted lasers with just their wild spray of.
Yeah. And it wasn't enough to take us down when our shields were full, so it was beneficial overall.
Right.
But yeah, we won the fight, and we got a whole lot of proton grenades out of the deal.
Right.
And I think Antley did the rolls to see if we could figure out how to use them. So now we can do that. We can throw a grenade and then actually decide when it goes off.
Right.
So they proceeded, they found an elevator and went down it. The elevator wasn't designed for people, it was designed for robots, so it had like no sides. It dropped out of a thing and then it was in this big open space, and they could see this was a space where like the waterworks were, all the wastewater was coming in, it's where they were creating new water. And that explains why there's no water coming in and out of the city.
It's all recycled.
Yeah. And they also at this point got spotted by some bots far off in that complex, and they started getting shot at while they're on the elevator, because of course that has to happen.
Yeah.
We did that as a different kind of battle. We just did it as like
a skill challenge of some kind.
Security challenges. So
Yeah.
it was just lighter, right? It was interesting.
Yeah.
They were getting shot. Some people got shot. No one actually went down before they took out those things
Sapped our shields.
and moved down into the next area.
So we wound up in another fight in another hallway. hallway,
Yeah.
but there was a door at the end of the hallway that looked like a boss door.
Yeah, so the elevator doors opened, and there was just basically a hallway up to a door, and it was just the hallway was just packed with things, and out of like panels, there just more and more
Yeah.
defenses. They were just every defense was coming.
Yeah, and
every
John-
round more defenses were coming.
John told us up front that there were an infinite number of bots that were available to come out of the walls, so they were just going to keep coming.
Right.
And so I was immediately like, oh, we actually get points for every enemy that we kill. We could just sit here and farm these things, but no, we would eventually got worn down. So.
And I also said that like your scans indicate that door at the end is locked, and it will need a famed engineering check to open it, which would just basically you spend your turn doing an engineering check, and if you get famed, which is the best, then it opens.
So Empele just runs towards the end of the corridor, ignoring everyone around her, because she's got some shields, she's got health. You know, she can't get taken down too quickly.
Yeah. Early on, I think she got hit pretty hard with.
Yeah.
She was like the only one in the red zone or something, and got
Yeah.
hammered. But then eventually she got into the same zone as the enemies, so at least they were shooting each other, trying to kill her.
And the rest of us just started, shooting stuff and trying to clear out as much of this to reduce the amount of damage that Empele was taking. I think we grenaded some stuff. And, yeah, basically it was a corridor filled with gun turrets and explosions, and it was very intensive. But Empele just ran straight down to the end without any deviation.
Yeah, it might have taken one extra turn because it depends on the cards you have.
Yeah.
So I think but either way.
I think she got good.
Oh, maybe she got a
cards,
data
'cause
transfer.
I seem to remember that she didn't have any delays there.
Yeah. And
So she ran straight down there, and then she did her check and just
got it on the
masterworked
first
right
time.
to do. There we
Opens.
are. Door opens. And beyond is this big control room with these other type of aliens sitting at various stations
sort
and
of
stuff like that.
skeletal looking.
Yeah.
That's the best description I can give without a picture. I'll get you.
Skeletors?
Yeah.
Not really
And
skeletal.
they don't really react to the door opening. They're not like
They just,
opening fire
yeah, they
or
just
anything.
kind of look over. Three of them are at the control panel, clearly intent on doing something,
Yeah.
and the rest of them, there's 12 more of them just sitting in like kind of recliner chairs,
Yeah.
and they just all kind of look over.
And so Empele, I think she runs through the door at the first opportunity. She gets to the other side, and as soon as she's on the other side of the door, the guns stop firing at her.
Right.
And so we're like, safe zone. So we all stop shooting and all start running.
Right.
And at this point, as the combat progresses, you build up more and more cards in your hand.
Yeah, those kind of corridors. Yeah.
So yeah, as the those little side what were they, the buttress things?
Yeah.
They have their spines on their throats for some reason.
The best was after I showed this around and then whatever they were talking about, and Robert was like, "Thanks, Darren Wallace."
Maybe if you hadn't made such evil-looking aliens, these would have been nicer.
But they just kind of seemed not all that concerned or interested.
Yeah.
But the rest of the party just
We all just
poured through there as quick as they
pile
could.
through the door as fast as we can, and we're inside. And Flint Daniels is our anthropologist translator type. So he goes up to greet them.
Aha!
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what approach he took. Was it the standard sort of like we bring greetings, or was he more angry about it?
I think he was more angry because he was clearly these guys are like
They've
not
been
doing
bad things.
Yeah.
So he confronts them, and one of them sort of acts as the spokesman of the alien. He has one of those universal translator earrings, and so he responds. And I can't remember how the interplay of the conversation went. We could just get to what we learned. Things.
Yeah, because I mean, they talked in this raspy voice, and he told everyone to take universal translator so he could talk to them.
Yeah.
And then just proceeded to say that they were like, why do you take all these people as sacrifices? And he said,
Turns out they need brain juice to survive.
they need a compound that's found in the brains of sentient life forms to live. And they see this like, look at all the stuff we've done for the city. We take care of them. There's no disease. There's no
Yeah.
suffering. There's no hunger.
They
And
feel
all
they've
we ask,
earned it,
and all we
essentially.
ask is what we need to stay alive. And
Which
are
is
you?
15 people ground up each day.
And you know, you're here. You've overcome our defenses. So now the question is, are you going to murder us?
Basically, yeah. It was all just a question of what is the most optimal way to go about murdering these guys.
So
Yeah,
no, go ahead. You were going to say the
yeah.
problem. That's what I was going to
The
say.
problem is they're running all this equipment
And
that is sustaining this city.
And it only works based on their. It's
Yeah.
for them, so it only works if you kill them. It would take months to figure out how to make this work, and it would take a team of engineers, which neither of which you have. So if you kill them, all the stuff that keeps the city fed, clothed,
Yeah.
etc., watered, it all turns off.
Yeah. So basically, this is one of those trolley problem situations. If we don't shoot them, they continue to grind up 15 people a day. If we do shoot them, the city collapses and there's mass starvation, which
And-
may spill out into the countryside and cause problems for the innocent farmers.
It's funny. It actually, the dilemma was worse than I had intended, because I had thought, well, basically, does the city live or die? They were kind of, using those guys as the sacrifice. They weren't sacrificing themselves.
Yeah.
But then the reality is they would spill out into the countryside and try to, even though they're not trained as fighters, there's like 20,000 of them or whatever. It's going to destroy everything, right? Not just them, but
Actually, I don't think it would have been that bad. I think everyone really fixated on this notion that the city folk would swarm out and devastate the surroundings. But there's only 20,000, and there must be more farmers than that. A lot more farmers than that, because they're killing 15 people a day. If you were to, I actually calculated, if you were to just use the city folk as a source for that, they'd use up the city in 4.5 years.
Yeah, I think that may have just been. I probably should have made it 15 a week because that would have worked out a little better on the numbers.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, there was a whole bunch of debate going on. Lieutenant Hill sort of realized the combat's over, so our shields have regenerated to 6. He has a plasma grenade that normally does 7 damage, but due to the dent in his head, his attacks do 1 less damage. So if he was to just set off the plasma grenade, we'd all be fine and this room would be wrecked. Problem solved. I was considering it, because everyone was hemming and hawing and arguing. And I was like, yeah, there's really... you're just quibbling over the details of an inevitable catastrophe. Let's just do it.
What if you kill half of them and thus reduce the cost?
We considered that. It turns out the minimum number of them required to operate the equipment is 3.
But they need breaks, so it's 6. But there's 15 of them. So
yeah. And so it was mostly a question of moral dilemma. Flint Daniels decided this really shouldn't be our call. It should be the call of the farmers that live outside.
They're the ones being sacrificed.
They're the victims here. And he had a couple of those guys. They were still outside, but the honorary space rangers that he'd picked up,
Right.
he had a communicator he could talk to them with. So he explained the situation to them. And they were, of course, very angry. What was their initial suggestion? Kill them all or something? Or?
Well, basically, he basically said if we kill them, then the villagers are going to come out and try to take your stuff, and we'll fight them to the last man. Because they're pretty upset that their people have been used for human sacrifices, so these people could live in luxury for like 10,000 years or like 5,000 years, as you would.
I think it worked out to be. Let's see, how do we calculate it?
I think it was like 5,000 years or something. It was a few thousand years, but
No.
Anyway.
We worked out that they killed something like 24 million people. These 15 individuals here were responsible directly grinding up 24 million people.
which is again I probably should change it to be per week because that's just a little more numerical than I thought, but it doesn't matter. Maybe they breed really fast on this planet. But anyway, yeah, they were like there was some thought that maybe they'd be willing to like come to some agreement with the city folk or whatever, but like they were really upset as you would be.
Quite understandable.
But then Flint hit on like a plan that was probably the best outcome, which was put it to the city. Basically say, you can keep your way of life, but you can only pull from your own numbers, and we're going to bring the honorary space rangers into the Ziggurat to like enforce that, right? Like if you start doing raiding parties again, to them, we just kill the gods right now, and it's all over, right? And they have the defenses on so they can enforce that. And they hit on this plan of basically phasing out the city, giving them chance to like turn off the system slowly, and then and phase the people into farming. They could use the replicators to produce seeds. It's the middle of a growing season, so they would have to start next season. But so they put it to the city. That's what they ended up doing. They debated this a long time, but that's what they ended up doing. Basically, what happened was the city went into riots, and then probably about a quarter of the population died in the riots, and the rest formed a government where there would be some sort of lottery system of who got sacrificed, and they agreed to slowly phase out stuff because they didn't want to be sacrificing their own number.
It occurs to me, a quarter of the city died in the riots. Couldn't we just put them on ice? For that matter, people die of natural causes all the time. How long does this brain chemical last in a dead person?
I guess it must have to be fresh.
So once again, the solution to the dilemma is getting the old, infirm, terminally ill people and grinding them up.
Oh, one thing that was asked is how did these aliens live on their own planet? Actually, no. Let me finish what happened first. So they form this government and they agree to phase it out. But having learned what the gods are about, they weren't willing to keep them all alive, and that's really their prerogative. And they're already phasing down to like half levels of like we're not going to be living in luxury. So they basically said we're only going to sending 3 sacrifices a day.
Right.
So they'll be running at half capacity, and the rest are just all going to die. And we're not going to. The party basically left it to them, and that's what they decided.
Yeah.
And so they only sent enough sacrifices for 3 of them. There was internal discohesion amongst the aliens of who was going to get it. Some of them wouldn't even go along with the plan at all. They're like, no, I'm not helping at all if we do this plan.
Yeah.
But there was enough of them.
So
that
they
were willing.
die first.
But yeah, the rest of them died. They died. They passed away in their sleep.
They died as they lived.
They fell asleep in their reclining chairs and didn't wake up. And the leader tried to focus on the thing that the party was murdering them, but they just.
They're like, yeah, so we
Tit for tat.
we don't feel at all bad about this. So we also found out where they'd come from and why they were here.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, Hill thought he was being sneaky. He went off to the side and was like examining their equipment and trying to get like navigation logs.
Right.
The rest of the party was kind of watching over his shoulder. So he got some navigation logs. He figured out that like 1800 years ago or something, they had gone on like an exploratory mission and their ship had crashed here. So they were stranded very far from their homeworld. But, I sort of determined where their homeworld was. And yeah, fairly standard sort of why are there advanced aliens here? Yeah. They're stranded here. They didn't come here on purpose.
Yeah, and they're beyond the boundaries of where their civilization usually goes. No one's ever come to pick them up. They don't know where they are. There's no hope of getting home.
Yeah.
So they're just, making do, living here, and on their home planet, the chemical they need is created by this thing that they said is kind of like a fungus, but it's like semi-sentient, and anyway, it produces this chemical, and they live in a symbiotic relationship with it, but it can't live off the planet, so they usually just take a certain amount of this chemical with them, but they ran out.
So we killed most of them and left the rest to die later.
The plan is eventually they will phase them out, and they're all going to die. But a few of them were willing to, some of them were like, well, screw you, I'm not doing anything. But some of them were like, yeah, we owe it to the city. If we're going to die anyway, we may as well help them out.
Right. Did they not want to train like the team of engineers to operate the machinery anyway?
These guys are not engineers. They're like diplomats, so they just know how to run the machines. They don't know anything about how to fix them or anything.
They never learned in 1800 years. So I really don't feel too bad for these guys.
Well, apparently they don't mate or...
Yeah, apparently they were content to just sit in this room for 1800 years operating sewage equipment.
Yeah.
So they're very boring people.
Actually, it never came to it, but they had like little entertainment devices in their thing, so they were like watching Netflix the whole time.
Oh, we should have stolen their entertainment devices. We would have got more bonuses. But yeah, there was a ton of technology we ripped off from the place. And Chumley brought back, what was the name of the riding beast?
Oh, the name? I don't remember.
The frog-like thing.
Yeah, he gave a name to... It was something initially he thought it was a female, but it turns out it was male. Anyway, we're bringing one of those back. He wanted to bring back a breeding pair.
Well, it still hasn't been decided yet. So.
Yeah, and that's going to be tricky because John has ruled that we don't really have any extra cargo space for that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So when we do the trip back, we're going to have to play Space Alert to get back as well. There's going to be all these alien horse monsters running around inside the ship, and it's going to be some kind of impediment. I think John's initial idea was that if they're in a zone, if you go into the zone, you trip automatically going in there because there's an alien horse monster freaking out in the zone. And so the number of them will be like however many Chumley has gone along, and presumably they'll move around. And
maybe you can put them on. Maybe you can do an action to like cage them up or something. So they might get free.
My suggestion was stuff them into the fighters, and have them flying around outside the ship for the whole time.
Because the fighters fly themselves.
Yeah, the fighters are flown by the battle bots.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if there's a horse monster freaking out inside your fighter crafts. The attack on the Death Star would have been a very different thing in our universe. Gold leader standing by. Stupid horse monster.
Horse leader standing by.
Ribbit.
So anyway, that's where things stand. We've concluded the big discovery on this planet.
Yeah. They stayed for a while to help things, like, they gave them technology to help them enhance their farming, so that to help them deal with the initial glut. So they've given them the best chance they have of surviving. But certainly the city folks' way of life is going to change because they're going from living in luxury to actual Bronze Age living. But it's either that or die. So.
Yeah. And these people have been in technological stasis for 1,800 years. I suspect that is caused by those aliens. So they now have a chance to start progressing beyond that.
Yeah. Well, maybe if they study the machinery, they may figure out how to operate it.
I don't know. We couldn't, and we're advanced. So I don't know.
Yeah. Not super likely, but
maybe centuries from now they'll have scientists that are able to look at
This is the instruction manual.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is
the weird aliens knew how to operate it.
Yeah. The thing is, it's tied to their biology, and it's like designed to keep them alive. It'll turn off if there isn't any of them to keep alive.
I see.
Now, you could hack it to not need that, but you need to understand it, and that's the thing that's hard.
Yeah.
So maybe Corporation Incorporated can send a team of engineers.
But
to strip the place down.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
To learn the technology.
It's out of our hands now.
Right. Your mission is complete.
Our mission is complete, yes.
So they fly back. We haven't played the Space Alert on the way back.
Yeah, so we don't know whether we land successfully or we crash land.
Where do you land when you return?
At Bullseye Crater, which turns out to be perhaps a more apt name than I had originally thought when I suggested it.
Yeah, well, Bullseye, Colorado is the name of the place, and I think we decided the crater's called Cheyenne Crater because it's where Cheyenne Mountain used to be.
Right.
But yeah, so they'll either land or crash land in that spot.
At Bullseye. I'm sure there's all these ruined ships just everywhere. It's like huge field full of gutted wrecks.
We've reused the usable bits. Yeah.
In the pilot's bar, there's a ongoing bet who can land closest to the bullseye. Just crash land close to the bullseye.
Yeah. Well, I originally said that there was a lake in the center of Bullseye Crater, so
that would make sense as a place to try to hit.
Yeah.
But there's probably lots of ruins at the bottom of that lake.
Aim for the blue things. But we'll see how that
the computer aims for the blue thing, as long as the computer's not too destroyed.
That's true. We're not actually piloting.
As long as you wiggled the mouse, you're fine.
You would think in a ship being rocked with explosions and attacks and stuff, the mouse would wiggle itself.
Yeah. Well, it's actually not literally wiggling the mouse. We just call it that because but you actually have to press a button. You press the C button, right?
Yeah.
And the reason that it's not automated, as people say, is because Corporation Incorporated paid them a lot of money to have their name on their screensaver.
Right.
And as a result, it's a part of the requirement of their sponsorship that after 1 minute, their screensaver always turns on every computer.
Right.
And you can't change that. And unfortunately, just because of the way the wiring of the ship is, and it's so cheaply done, that the ship's lights happen to be tied to this computer screen. And so when the screensaver comes on, the lights turn off. And if they stop it from doing that, then Corporation Incorporated will pull their billions and billions of dollars grants. So it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It still doesn't make sense why we don't have one of those like drinking birds.
No, that would be circumventing.
Also, the ship is rocking. You have one, it just falls over.
That's true. Yeah.
No, if you had that Corporation Incorporated might find out about it, and then
Can we take one of the honorary space cadets with us and just have them sit at the controls and push
No, the ship is only designed for 5 people.
Yeah.
But we have horse monsters on board.
Yeah, well, they can't do anything. They can't press
Can we
the C
tie
button.
one of the horse monsters to the
Train the frog
computer?
horse to press the C
Yeah.
button.
If it just keeps flailing away at the keyboard in a panic, eventually it hits the right button, right?
You'd have to get permission from the commanding officers, and you know that'll never happen.
Just put some salt on the button.
Yes, the horse monster will keep licking the button. There we go.
Turns out it's actually part snail, and salt is deathly allergic to salt.
Right.
So the first time it does that, it dies blocking access to the button.
No.
I think so. One thing we'll be having is there either Space Alert expansion that lets you get special abilities during the Space Alert part, and I'm pretty sure one of them is the ability to wiggle the mouse from anywhere on the ship.
Yeah.
Tie a string to it.
But that's like your special ability. It's like
Yeah.
you chose that instead of being able to like teleport or like
Yeah.
lead battle. It's like I can wiggle the mouse from anywhere on the ship.
You got a wireless keyboard to keep it in your pocket.
Anyway, that's where we are.
Engineering officer, personal log. I don't know, I'm kind of torn up about everything that happened here. No matter what we do, a lot of people are going to die. And, I think we made the least bad choice it's good that the civilization will be able to grow on their own and learn how to take care of themselves without relying on these aliens that are killing 15 of them a day, which is staggering. I did the math, and over the time they've been here, for 1,800 years, they've killed about 12 million of them, and that's absolutely sickening. And so I'm glad we were able to stop that. But there's going to be such an enormous cultural shift now that it's going to be hard. But I think we did the best thing we could have. And I guess ultimately I'm glad we were able to help them as much as we could. Well, Lieutenant Antolay out.
Lieutenant Pill, personal log, encryption key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this was a wash. It turns out there weren't hiders here or destroyers. It was just one lost crew from a very distant civilization, stranded in a static civilization, static social environment. Completely irrelevant. Oh well. At least the situation has been resolved, and there is now a potential for growth of a new prominent civilization to act as decoys out here. We'll see what happens.
Medical officer's log number 4. Well, I feel like we got the best results with this rescuing these aliens from the other aliens. But I still don't think it was really a good result. But I don't think there was a good thing. Well, at least millions of them don't have to be sacrificed anymore. So that's good.
I seem to have misplaced my name tag. Maybe I'll have to get command to order me another one. I can pay for it. I'm sure they're not too expensive, right?
Lieutenant Chumley, personal log. So we found some aliens from another place. So I'm sure the log chart's been informed. Well, I think they're all hen-hearted, that's for sure. They deserve the sheriff's picture frame, if you ask me. I thought Daniels was headed that way. I swear I'd give him a horse's nightcap if I could. No one listens to me. I'd like to trounce them, I swear.
Flint Daniels, Space Ranger, final log, Basimo 3. It's never easy to trade the dream for a reality, particularly a honeyed, bloody dream, such as the false god sold these people. Look at these peasants, their hands cracked and bleeding on the plow. Watch how their gaze turns from the blood-soaked spires of the Ziggurats towards that clearing patch of sky where there shines a single gleaming beacon, upwards, onwards, outwards, to reach the unreachable star.